Okay, it's going to be a very interesting broadcast tonight. I've had a lot of broadcasting issues because of my speakers, which I'm generally getting a lot of problems with. I've been trying to set up a different microphone here, mic stand, but it hasn't worked out. And if anybody else has some suggestions, I'd be very pleased. Um, In the meantime, I'm still going to be using this headset so you guys get some better audio as opposed to me talking into the microphone. Um, I think it would be much better if I was able to do this on PC, on like a desktop computer. But sorry to hear, sorry to tell you, rather that I don't have a desktop as of yet. Maybe one day I'll get one. I know that they're not as expensive as they used to be. Today, we're going to talk a little about why gun control is really one of knee-jerk topics that there is. Now, I'll be the first to admit that on the right, there's a knee-jerk against gun control just as much as there's a knee-jerk on the left to promote it. But I think that there's a huge distinction when you're talking about the level of knowledge of firearms. Um, I have this opinion because I live in an urban area where you've had people who for decades there's been growing crime due to gangs and due to urban decay and due to a lack of real um, leadership in the civilian sector, and that's really the way I define how it's been working in the United States since I've um, come to know the city I live in. And I think most cities, you'd have to agree, are basically dealing with crime epidemics that they don't really care about actually solving. Reason, which is that um, they will very apparently contain as much of the violent crime to areas of the city that aren't necessarily the top priority. Instead, the downtown area, the areas that are in um, the main economic engines, those are the areas that they'll protect. They'll do patrols, they'll enforce the laws, they'll be very stringent about keeping that area open for business and accessible for the people who work there. On the other hand, if you go to areas of the city where there's really no hope of any economic activity breaking out, basically the ghettos, as in some cities like St. Louis, Baltimore, Cleveland, Detroit, Philadelphia. Those areas of the city, they'll concede ground. They won't have any problem letting areas go to waste. Now, I want your help here. I'm going to, if there's anybody tuning in, please let me know if the audio works. I think there's no point in me continuing this broadcast. Let me just see if I can get this on screen. So many audio problems just for trying to give, this is all for you guys, by the way, this microphone and everything. I wanted to make it better, but looks like old technology. Yes. Damn it, this computer is slow as hell too. I'm just like waiting here for it to load. Looks like I lost connection too. All right, let me see. Freedom Work, can you hear me? Type in the chat if you can hear me. All right, thanks. Because I have my speakers disabled. I can't even hear. It's so insane, like how hard it is to set up just one simple microphone on this computer. But thanks for tuning in. I know that ABL wasn't on today. I haven't been on since probably Wednesday, or no, it was probably even Tuesday. I had a religious holiday. But I'm going to talk a little about gun crime, and if you want to chime in on the chat, go ahead. There's a lot of calls about the gun epidemic, as they call it in America, the idea that we now need gun control for some reason because we can't trust people with firearms. Well, I'm just going to bring up a couple cases, and I think they're already in the description, by the way, of homicides that happen, and there really is no rational explanation. If you're talking about laws, if you're talking about why we need laws, then don't look at actual crimes that happen, because it proves that you can make as many friggin' laws as you want, and you can actually arrest people for them, and you can try to put them in prison, but ultimately the justice system will, they'll spew them back out. um, This is from the city I live in, Cleveland. It says, man charged in shooting at Cleveland bar that left 1 dead and 4 injured. Now let me share this. I've actually driven past the bar where this happened. I've driven past it because I probably shouldn't go in there, because I probably wouldn't be welcome for fairly obvious reasons. I hope you guys are not experiencing the interruptions that I am. I did restart the computer, so that's not, it's not because I've working right now. Jeez. So, man charged in the shooting at Cleveland bar that left 1 dead and 4 injured. So, a Cleveland man is accused of peppering a crowd fighting outside a Cleveland bar with an assault rifle, leaving 1 dead and 4 others injured. The photo in the middle, it doesn't have anything to do with this. John Mittman III, age 21, is charged with aggravated murder in the death of 45-year-old Daryl Howard. Mittman is not in police custody, and a warrant was issued Friday for his arrest. The shooting happened about 1 a.m. August 19th outside of Freck's Lounge on Superior Avenue near East 112th Street, police said. And like I said, I've been past that bar, and it looks like the place you don't want to go into. It looks like, first of all, it looks like a shithole. If I could, I'd pull up a photo of it, but maybe I'll make that the subject, the thumbnail of this live stream when I'm done. It says a fight broke out inside the bar and spilled outside, according to police. Several people called police to help break up the fight. At least 3 gunmen opened fire during an ensuing shootout, police said. Mittman fired an assault rifle during the shootout, according to court records. Police are still trying to identify the other shooters. Officers recovered several bullet casings from different guns and towed 3 vehicles as part of the investigation. Howard died at the scene, and 4 others between the ages 29 and 45 were injured in the shooting. Those injuries were not life-threatening, so that just shows a lack of aim. Mittman was convicted in this is where I'm going to focus. Mittman was convicted in 2 separate cases in 2015 for illegally carrying guns. In one case, he was driving a car that led Cleveland Heights police on a short chase into East Cleveland. He ran from police, who found a gun with the serial number scratched off inside the car. Less than a month later, East Cleveland police arrested him for carrying a loaded gun inside Sam's Deli on Hayden Avenue. He pleaded guilty in both cases and was initially sentenced to 2 years on probation. He violated probation and served 1 year in prison. And I actually think I have his record here. from Allen Correctional Institution down state. You know, we have, here it is, John Mittman III, 1-year-old who was listed as being under the supervision of the Department of Corrections in Allen Correctional Institution, Ohio. He was sentenced, adjudicated in Cuyahoga County. He was listed on the State Department of Corrections website below in relation to the criminal offense carrying a concealed weapon on Friday, December 11th, 2015. Let me see, where's his official? Here we go. His inmate record. Let's see this winner. Let me check back in the chat. Let me see if you guys are experiencing any interruptions. Okay, you guys seem, it seems like you're fine, but let me know. So we're gonna type in his name, I guess. Yet. Anyway, so all I'm saying is that you can complain all you want till your face turns blue about gun control laws. And the fact of the matter is that they ain't gun control option. Come back up here. Sorry guys, there's just so much interruption. And here I'm back. So I'm going to type in his search. Okay, yeah, it just popped up. Well, it looks like it's his dad, John Mittman Jr. So he was. So this is a multi-generational crime thing. His dad is in Lorraine Correctional Institution in, it's actually pretty. It's west of where I live. I've actually been to that place. Not as an offender. Not as an offender, but I've been there to bring. Actually, no, I think I went and visited Grafton. Let me see. So that's his dad. Okay, so what's going on here? You have he was sentenced for escape. Um, it doesn't even say what crime he was originally convicted of. So no, this isn't the best portal to use. In any case, so we're not just going to talk about that crime, but I was using it to illustrate a really easy point to take to heart here. We have plenty of gun violence laws here in Ohio and in Cleveland and in Cuyahoga County, but the fact of the matter is that we have homicides all the time. I was just speaking to somebody by email recently, writing back and forth. and I hadn't heard from him in a while. And he said that his stepson had been murdered, which was a pretty unusual statement. I thought that I actually thought that this phenomenon was fairly rare because this is a pretty large city in terms of area. But to be honest, there's another issue, whether it's rare or not, is about the fact that a lot of these crimes don't even get solved, and people, they want to blame the guns. Well, how about the fact that residents don't want to report people that are actually committing the crimes to the police? Now, I understand as somebody, I don't think that police are the most trustworthy party in the city. They're not, or whatever you want to call them. They're the most trustworthy service. I understand people get hassled by the police. That they seem to get harassed at various points, but you don't have a choice in most cases. There's no alternative when you have crimes being committed. People are getting, for example, there were 2 people who were murdered last year on the East Side, and I was trying to make the point for a while. Isn't any coverage for it, for all of the national attention about police violence. There was no coverage of these 2 women who were murdered, and their murders were never solved. One of them was her name was Jessica Coleman, I believe, and the other's name was I think it was Natalie Perez. These are 2 quote unquote women of color. They were found in abandoned buildings. They were found on the east side of Cleveland, and then there was never any follow-up about it. Basically ignored it. They treated it as if it was casual that happens. Well, then, in my opinion, then first of all, this debunks the whole idea that the urban community really cares about crime and preventing people from getting killed. I'd say only a few people do there, because otherwise people were absolutely fine with letting this go. And I'll explain why I have such a harsh assessment. In Cleveland, there have been 2 serial murderers that were caught in the past 5 years, and 1 person who imprisoned women for long periods of time. 2 of them were famous people. One of them was the Imperial Avenue serial killer Anthony Sowell. He was executed, I think, 2 years ago. He killed, I don't know how many women. I'm going to look it up on my phone, but he was a pretty prolific serial killer here. And one of the reasons that he was so successful was that many of his victims were crack addicts or prostitutes. Families didn't really think to actually look for them because they were used to them being gone. So why would people care about these women? You know, to put it lightly, not very functional in their own lives. He killed confirmed 11 people. Okay, this guy was 58 years old. I think he still is. No, this was in 2009. He was captured. He had a history of violence. He said it says in 1989, a woman who was 3 months pregnant went to Sowell's home voluntarily. When she tried to leave, he bound her hands and feet with a tie and belt, then gagged her with a rag. He eventually pleaded guilty to the charge of attempted rape and as a result, he served 15 years in prison. He was released in 2005. Then he worked in a factory until 2007 when he began collecting unemployment benefits. Neighbors said he earned a living selling scrap metal. They complained to the health department of a foul smell in the neighborhood. He was a member of an online dating service where he stated that he was a master looking for a submissive person to train. Then it says the niece of Mayor Jackson began a relationship with Sowell shortly after his release from prison and resided in his home. So a little more on Mayor Jackson later. I think this will be a little more about local issues here. I know that some of you might watch Six Hexenhammer. He does his Vermont issues. I think his Vermont issues, he does a great job with better material, with material that isn't as good as what I have, but he does a better job because he can present it well. But I guess you can take it for what it's worth. It's pretty crazy what happens here in Ohio, and I guess this is my version of what he does. She claimed to have smelled the stench of decaying bodies, and that she was told the smell was coming from Soul's stepmother. She claimed that the smell was from Ray's sausage shop located next door to the Soul residence. There is some confusion about when Frazier stopped living in Soul's home. In a video interview, she mentions moving out in 2007, but in a published article, she is said to have been living there until 2008. Another article quotes a friend of Frazier stating that Frazier stopped spending time at Soul's home in 2008. Now that's just one guy, and he killed confirmed 11 people. There may have been probably more. I mean, there's a lot of unsolved murders in this city. Let's see if I can get this other guy, Michael Madison. He might not even be available. I think he was convicted. Yeah, here we go. Michael Madison is an American serial killer from East Cleveland who committed at least 3 murders. And they were also mostly crack-addicted prostitutes, except for one woman who was not, and that was the key. I think his last victim, Angela Deskins, if I'm not mistaken, was a lot younger and not connected to prostitution. So they basically her family went and did an active search, and eventually he was apprehended. It says here, on July 19th, 2013, police responding to reports of a foul odor investigated a garage leased to Madison and discovered a decomposing body lying inside. 2 more bodies were found the following day, one in the backyard and the other in the basement of a vacant home. The bodies of 3 women were found 100 yards to 200 yards apart and were each wrapped in plastic bags. After obtaining a search warrant, police entered Madison's apartment and found further evidence of decomposition. After a brief standoff with police at his mother's house, Madison was taken into police custody without incident. And then the third case that you might remember was Ariel Castro, who was he wasn't a serial killer, so to speak, even though he forced his victims to kill their kids most of the time. He kidnapped 3 women. Okay, he kidnapped the most famous of which was Amanda Berry, whose family was searching for her for years, and it was one of the most tragic elements of that case was that her mom, who'd been looking for her for years, ended up dying while she was in captivity in Ariel Castro's home. They actually went and gone on one of those psychic shows with Sylvia Brown, who's a noted psychic fraud, and she claimed that her daughter was dead already. She claimed that she was dead already and that there was no reaching her and to give up already. So essentially you have this issue where why do I bring up these people that are not gun criminals? Anthony Soul, Michael Madison, and Ariel Castro. Well, the fact is that when you have a city of hundreds of thousands of people with criminals that are preying on the most vulnerable, the women, and nobody even reports it, and then I bring up also the gun violence that happens here, that you can pass as many laws as you want, but people aren't responding to it. People don't have any belief in this legal system, because if they did, system, they wouldn't be letting these crimes go free. Let me just read here. Game Mafia Free went and he posted, and Freedom Works said it's disrespectful to come into a stream and just to advertise. I don't really, if somebody does that on my stream, I kind of wonder how desperate they are, because I actually go and put up, notices that I have a video coming up, or for example, I go on Lionel's stream and I tell him, yeah, there's I have an interview coming up this Sunday, for example. By the way, I have an interview coming up about Catalonia. So I don't know if I really care, but I think it's kind of a desperate move to come to my channel where I don't really have that many people, and kind of I only have like 2 or 3 people at a time. But have any questions, go ahead and ask me. I was peeking over just to see if anybody had asked anything, and the stream that I was getting into, the stream of thought, was that you can pass as many gun laws as you want, and give as many talks and light the night events that they do here. I think they call them white nights here, where they go outside and people pretend that safe streets because everybody's outside. Because the fact of the matter is that no, you're not scaring any criminals. The way to scare criminals, I believe, is to really create a citizen force to stopping their actions. Okay, that means forming possibly cooperating with police. I don't know if that's always necessary, but there have been neighborhoods here in Ohio where neighborhood watches have been very effective, because they intimidate homes where known gang members live, and they tell them, well, if you're going to do this, we're either going to rat you out to the police, or we're going to basically rat you out to your homeowner, and they're going to kick you out for whatever you're doing. And it's been effective. I wouldn't say it's been effective everywhere, because obviously we have a tremendous gun crime problem here. We've had over 50 murders in this city since the beginning of the year. This is a city that's much smaller than Columbus. So is that when you have serial murderers that have gone for years without being reported, one of the reasons that they can do that is because they don't feel the need to actually be afraid of the law coming after them, because they're used to the residents not even caring. In fact, in the case of Anthony Soule, it's known that a female police detective, visited his home once and didn't even proceed to investigate the entire home. She simply went into know that there was the odd smell, but she didn't pursue it further. And who knows how many lives could have been saved if they would have properly investigated him. I did have my car broken into one time, parked downtown. The investigation turned out nothing. In fact, a group of citizen, I want to call them, they're like an activist group. They found one of the bags that was stolen, and all they do is they patrol the neighborhoods and look for lost things and help people. They're not even just like a volunteer group. So my confidence in the police is pretty low, and my confidence in the community is pretty low. Freedom Works says laws only matter as much as they line up with the culture they're applied in. Here, I think he brings up, a comfortable angle of this. He says culture is the only thing that matters. Culture is the cultivation of behavior. Well, when you have communities that are racked by this culture, where it's acceptable to assault one another, or and especially the gangster culture here in Ohio, in Cleveland, then I think he has a point, which is that you can pass as many phony laws as you want, but ultimately people don't believe in the underlying reason for having gun laws anyway. They believe, in fact, I think that it emboldens them. They say, well, this makes me an outlaw. Having these weapons makes me an outlaw, and that enhances this mystique that I get out of it, that I'm breaking the law and that I am being a rebel against society. Well, to be honest with you, I don't think that they are being rebels against society, because they're fitting in to this like I said, this generation of crime and incarceration. Like I said, the person in that article who is alleged to have murdered a person at Freck's Lounge, his father is in prison right now too. I'm not sure why, but when your dad's in prison and you're being arrested 2 times in 1 year for gun violations, and now you're suspected of a gun murder, then why are these gun laws even considered a real way of reinforcing law and order in society? They're not. In fact, people have been observing over the past few weeks, and I think agree with me, and so will anybody else listening. You cannot call for more gun control if at the same time you don't even trust law enforcement for anything else. A lot of the people in the BLM movement, for example, they don't believe that police and law enforcement, as they're currently constituted, can even enforce the laws that are on the books, and without abusing the communities that they're supposed to be guarding. They have a point in some respects, because I'm more of a small government person. I don't believe that people should be living in a surveillance state. But if there is no trust between law enforcement and the community, then the gun laws don't work at all. They're basically meaningless. And I'm going to bring up 2 more sources, if this lets me without freaking out, that I have found that are, they're pretty good. One of them is called Hey Jackass, but despite the name, I assure you it's a pretty good resource. It documents a lot of the latest on Chicago crime, and Chicago is being it's being used all around the country as the worst location for gun crime. Well, maybe Chicago's getting a bad rap, but how many years did it take for people to realize how bad it was in Detroit and in Miami and in New Orleans and in St. Louis and in LA? The truth is that our society, which is tolerant for everything that should be intolerable, has let these things become acceptable, has let these these atrocities of urban crime and decay become acceptable, because the people who are the powers that be, cities, LA, Chicago, Detroit, they don't have to deal with it. If they live within the city, they live in some of these more, they call them gated communities. Not all of them are actually gated, but they're definitely patrolled more, and they definitely receive better services from the police. Maybe it's not a gated community. Maybe on Stefan Molyneux's podcast a few weeks ago, who hadn't really lived, with urban crime. He had some relatives that were living in urban areas that had to deal with crime, but he claimed that he lived in the Chicago high-rise for a long time and never experienced anything close to the crime epidemic that's happening in Chicago. So it's not even a racial issue. It's in my mind, I think it's an issue that's skewed to the Black community, because black neighborhoods that are affected by gun violence. Uh, that's just the way it is. But there's plenty of the well-off black community members that they don't really deal with it because they they can live in a high rise or a place where there's a doorman and there's security. Well, they don't have to deal with it. We have a mayor here in Cleveland who his grandson has been accused of almost every crime in the book, except for capital crimes like murder and rape. But he's been accused of riding illegal dirt bikes and gangs, and he's been accused of illegal weapons possession. So what was the mayor's reaction to the dirt bike offenses? He wanted to build a dirt bike course for the city for the use of the urban youth. Well, that was just laughed at by everybody. Once he got arrested for the gun charge, people were like asking, well, what's he going to do now? Build a firing range? And I'm looking at Hey Jackass! Exclamation point, which is in the description. And there's plenty of other trackers. The Chicago Tribune also has a tracker, by the way, of gun violence in the city. But Hey Jackass has this final September totals: 58 homicides in Chicago in 1 month. Okay, I saw earlier that in Chicago for the entire year of 2016, excuse me, they had about 730 homicides. Well, now they have a total, let me see, year to date, they have 508 homicides, and it's October. So with 2 more months to go, no, they have 545. With 2 more months to go, I don't know if they're going to beat 2016, but it's not as if they've really brought the epidemic under control. Okay, they have here a 30-day stupidity trend, they call it. There's shot and killed. Let me see here. Last 30 days. It says a person is shot every 2 hours and 17 minutes here through October 6th. A person is murdered every 12 hours and 20 minutes. It has a map. Let me just share this. I mean, it doesn't always show up great, but this is a resource I think you guys should start really utilizing. And instead of just trusting the Chicago Tribune or somebody else to give you spin on things, the data that comes up, because in reality, into the actual raw areas where these are occurring, there's no way you can spin something that's as obvious as these red areas where there's 10 plus shootings or 25 plus or 50 plus. It says in 2017, the deadliest neighborhoods include Austin, where there's 66 people murdered in one neighborhood. So that's more than my entire city. North Lawndale, 33 people murdered. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I would say that all this talk about gun control after Las Vegas is, in my opinion, just a bunch of bullshit. Okay, I'm sorry to talk about things as if, you know, I'm comparing one type of gun violence to another. But the truth is that, yes, Las Vegas was a horrible crime, and I'm not even going to go into some of the theories that are spinning about. That's not really what I'm not even really updated on it, and that's not really the intention of this video or this live stream. The intention of this live stream is just to say that you can put as many laws on the books as you want and talk about them in respect to, you know, legislating behavior and everything, and giving people solutions through legislation. But the reality is that in order to create a society where there's less gun violence, um, I think you have to start with the education system. I think you have to start with the parental family system. You know, when you have people whose parents have been in prison and are going through prison again and again, what do you expect? Do you expect people to be deterred by laws when they're already culturally habituated to ignore those laws anyway? Do you expect people to really care about gun violence as being an issue that can be solved by laws? I don't think so. I think that in reality, you're seeing people, um, you know, they're ignoring laws all the time. You're seeing this society that is weighed down by laws, and they don't even care because the law enforcement will focus on preserving this one nugget of the city where, you know, there's commerce going on, there's entertainment, there's you know, there's the legal system itself is located down there, city hall, municipal court, and everything. But the rest of the city, you know, they kind of let go to hell. And the Las Vegas shooting, what do they use? They say, oh, this is a white male, obviously unstable. That's the real face of gun crime. Well, not really, because this person who was arrested, this I hate to go back to John Mittman again, but he was using an assault rifle and he actually killed only one person. When in reality, if these assault rifles are so dangerous and he was firing into a crowd, logically he should have killed more people, right? Um, but that didn't happen. You have to, first of all, you have to be well trained to do it. What happened in Vegas, there's so many questions about how this person was able to pull it off. Well, when you're using an assault rifle in an urban area, you could potentially kill or 15 if they were the firearm. Sorry, I was just waiting for this to clear up. Um, like I said, if there's a scuffle and there's several people firing guns and only one person is killed and 4 injured, then I'd have to say that the problem isn't the availability of guns, okay, because the guns are available. The problem is that you've created an environment where people they simply feel that they can um, use weapons as much as they want. Freedom Work just chimed in. He said, most mass shootings that are publicized are relatively isolated incidents. In the U.S., there are only very small communities that have cultures that condone and promote such behavior. I'm not sure what he means by that, but I think what I would say is that you can go to many of these urban areas and yeah, people don't have a problem with gun violence because they see it as part of their culture, and sort of a you know, a motif. You know, the people spray graffiti all around town, bragging about their crimes, or you know, they lionizes it. And I'm not saying that I'm against rap music and things like that. I think you know, people have the right to express themselves even if it's stuff that's, in bad taste, if you want to call it that, if you want to call it that. But the bottom line is that these assault rifles, let's say this person had been an accurate shot, and he'd found these people, and he probably would have killed 6 or 7 of those people at Freck's Lounge. I think it was last week. The problem is not the weapons themselves. If you have the person who's properly trained on these firearms committing these acts of violence, then you would see much higher body counts. But in that case, you had a person who had already 2 firearms violations, and he only killed 1 person. Don't you think that's a little odd? Don't you think that it's possible that we have a much larger societal problem than guns? Okay, that the guns are only they're only a small part of the issue, and that if you pass more and more laws, you're not going to really address the underlying part of it. Because there's a person, he nevertheless, after 2 firearms violations, was able to get his hands on an assault rifle. And by the way, I don't even know if they an assault rifle. They didn't name what weapon it was. They didn't say it was an AR-15. They didn't say if it was, an SKS. They didn't say. It's kind of a joke, the way these media companies report, local media. Trying to pull up this last thing on Baltimore. Baltimore, I think earlier this week, they tried to publish an article debunking the White House's narrative on gun violence in Chicago, saying that the gun violence problem is mostly because they're able to bring from neighboring areas where there's very little gun control. So if that's true, if that's really the cause, then why is it that in Indiana the gun violence isn't as bad as in Chicago? I mean, you can go to the the outskirts of Indianapolis, or I have a friend who said that Indianapolis, one city in America where it leads, it's like the leading city for churches, strip clubs, and gun stores. That's, but you don't hear about a massive. But if you go out in the country, you go to rural areas where there's massive amounts of legal gun purchases, you're not seeing an epidemic of murders. You're not seeing an epidemic of gun crime. It's, I mean, could it be that it's just underreported? I don't know. I just don't. I don't buy it. I don't buy that the problem is legal gun purchases. Okay, I own a gun. A lot of friends of mine own them, and they're doing a major disservice here. I have in Baltimore. It says homicides this month. Okay, it says October 10th, or no, October 5th. It's not even October 10th yet. So it's October 5th, 2017. Malik Michael Perry. It's unknown. Okay, October 4th, 2017. Danteus Gaines, black. Then you have one white guy, Robert Breen, October 3rd. Then on October 2nd, Leonard Carolina, black guy. These are with few exceptions, white guy. Or sorry, they're black males. And Daniel Brinkley, black. Yeah, you just have this long string of black males that are getting killed in gun violence. So what exactly is the answer? Did you know that there's a huge outcry right now against mandatory minimum sentencing in Baltimore? One of the things that I've been doing on this channel, and I haven't had a chance to do it lately because the YouTube editor has been taken away, and I've also had a lack of time. But the For Real News videos. I parody this channel that's on YouTube called the Real News, and the Real News is a far left outlet, or they are very much against capitalism, and with that they're against the police department in Baltimore, and they're for scrapping mandatory minimum sentencing. I'd like to ask them, if you're so against gun ownership, which they are, then what are you supposed to do in order to enforce these laws? If you want more gun control laws, then what are you supposed to do about it? A couple more people chiming in. Freedom Work again, but I'll come back to you, Freedom Work, because I already mentioned you. No, that's actually an old comment of his. It says, J-Man Truth Seeker, how about the blackmail? You used the wrong blackmail, by the way. It should be black space MALE, but thanks. That walked into the church shooting and got shot by a white man carrying a gun legally. You hear about that and fucking CNN land okay, and I hope you don't even listen to them. No, I don't watch CNN, but yeah, I think a lot of people complain that good firearm owners are ignored by the media, and I appreciate that, but I think the greater issue is that we're focusing exclusively on the guns. We're not focusing on why people use these guns. Thanks, thanks for listening. But I usually don't grammar Nazi, but that was kind of funny because you used blackmail. Um, but there's an issue with a media that emphasizes the guns. They emphasize the guns. They emphasize and sometimes they'll emphasize the race. Like in the case of this shooter in Las Vegas, they'll emphasize the race. Well, I said last week while I was covering the aftermath of the Vegas shooting, I took a day and a half in order to really process what's going on as much as I could, because I do have to go to work. They never commented that on July 2nd at a and sorry guys, technical difficulties. Can you guys hear me now? Man and Freedom Work, please chime in. Let me know if you can hear me. I think I'm fully back now. Again, I don't really care about the race of the offender. I just think that when you want to make it about race, you do have to go into the black community, ask why there are people in the black community shooting other people, and it's not as if there's nothing else in other communities. They talk about, yeah, he says I was lagging a bit. Look, I have friends in my community, the Jewish community. I had a friend very close who assaulted two of my other friends, but it wasn't with a gun; it was with a knife, and it was dealt with. He hasn't offended since then. He did escape prison time. I've had other friends who have gone to prison or they've been incarcerated, or they've had house arrests and things like that. And bullshit about racializing crime. Yeah, I think people that are not in the black community or not Hispanic, let's call them white people. Yeah, we do have a kind of weird relationship with how we approach crime. Dishonesty on all sides. whether you're talking about ideology and about race and about um, gun crime. We have to address the fact that the communities that have been affected most by crime have been neglected across the board by a system that it's just about funding. Systems, all they care about is acquiring more funding, expanding more jobs, getting more administrators. They're not really concerned so much with improving the service to the students. At the end at the end of every school day, you have to ask, is this service working for the children? If it's not, then it has to be dramatically changed. What have we gotten here? It took decades to close a lot of the schools in my city. If you're living, I don't know where you guys live. Please let me know. If you're not comfortable with the city, just put the state or the region or something. But let me know. I mean, do you think that your communities are properly being serviced by the education system? I don't think so. Public education has been a wreck for decades because of teachers' unions, because of administrators, because of the SEIU. You go and look at this issue of these mayors that just serve for years and years. We have that here now, and Mayor Jackson for years has been considered one of the better mayors of this city. But when you let your grandson get away with all sorts of shit, what example does that set? That doesn't set a good example for your community or even for your family. And this is something that in the future, regardless of whether you're a Donald Trump supporter or you're a Hillary Clinton supporter or you're a gun control advocate, you are going to have to, let's say they enact draconian gun control laws where you have the ATF patrolling all the time and going into people's homes and taking their guns away. Well, then what else, what are you supposed to do then about the real issues of education in America, where you just have a lack of values and a lack of standards and the lowering of standards, and people should be talking more about that. People should be talking more about that, the lowering of standards. And I see your comment, J-Man, but I'll read it in a second. The lowering of standards in education and the lack of real moral imperatives there. I'm not talking about school prayer. That's a separate issue. Some people would say, oh, we should bring back school prayer. I don't know if school prayer is the only issue. I think the issue is that you're bringing in bullshit into the schools, all this multicultural education, the low standards of English, the low standards of math, the low standards of accomplishment, the idea that people should be herded through the system so that they can graduate regardless of whether they get the skills. That, in my opinion, is much worse of a generator of violence than guns themselves. Can you ask yourselves, why are these young people, I don't care if they are black or Hispanic or white, why are they going out and murdering people in their own neighborhoods? The answer is that they don't have a sense of goals and responsibility for the people around them. That they really are more committed to whatever subculture that they're in. Whether they are in a gang or not, they're more committed to whatever subculture they are in. And they don't care about the needs of their community for successful, ambitious, and qualified people to create a society that can generate more generate more generations of successful children and grandchildren. J-Man Truth Seeker says, I think that their actual goal is to destroy the black man, but also the working man, which means me, so I can relate. And then he also says, North Side Independent School District tax in San Antonio. If I live for 60 years or longer and pay $2,000 each year in tax, could I have not afforded it nice private school instead. Well, that's like you know, and we're going into a new area here, and I don't want to make this podcast too long, but he's right. Um, you just have these major school levies that just keep getting higher and higher in a lot of these urban school districts, and the whole if you just give a little more funding, we can cover more costs for the you know, usually they call it. I think I'm here. So yeah, what he brings up with all these school districts is a very true issue. You cannot have school districts constantly taxing the taxpayer, like this person, J-Man, um, asking for more and more and more, and then returning basically the same product. Then people they lose faith in the system, and by default, the people that are richer, they can put their kids in private schools or Catholic schools or charter schools. Sometimes you'll have charter schools that even the poor people can put their kids in, and then the actual public schools will go to shit because they're left with you know, the chaff. They're left with the shitty kids, the kids that don't have anywhere else to go, or the kids that their parents don't care. Well, that's the result of overtaxation, and the lack of values in education, the lack of standards, I think is part of the thing that's driving that. That's how the unions get this. They get the accountability down. They're able to escape scrutiny from the people that they're supposed to be serving. So J-Man says, yeah, Common Core. Yeah, I got what you meant about that. Freedom Works says government has no incentive to fix education. They're spending other people's money, so they don't care how much anything costs. They don't live around the victims of public education. Um, And J-Man Truth Seeker says that's because they have no father figure and the women are running all the households. Yeah, that's basically. I've heard it a lot. I can't relate. I did have a dad. I didn't live with him, but you know, I did have like a relationship with him because you know, I'd talk to him and I'd see him on the weekends and stuff. And you know, I can't relate to what they're talking about because it's true. If you don't have a father figure, if you don't have discipline in the home, that's another element of it. Um, and Freedom Works comment about spending other people's money, that's also absolutely true. And I think you guys are on the same page as me. So, you know, maybe one day one of you guys will want to come on to one of these podcasts. I know that I see Freedom Work once in a while on Anthony Logan's podcast. But, you know, I think it's time for us to wind down. But you guys already, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. We cannot have laws enforced in a society that doesn't respect laws anyway. Um, we have to really start focusing on the issues that drive this violence beyond the guns. And you know, the gun, honestly, the guy was arrested 2 times already in the space of a year for gun crimes. He got out and he committed a murder using a gun. So what did the gun laws do? Nothing. He was able to acquire a gun, probably illegally, commit murders, or they find the need to be armed to commit crimes. That's the way that society works when you have a lack of respect for laws and standards. And that's all I have to say, even though I've said too much already today. It's probably been almost an hour. But thanks you guys for tuning in and participating. And I hope that, you know, you tune in tomorrow. I do have 12 noon this interview with Catalunya C about what's been going on in Spain. Totally different topic. Maybe you guys aren't really plugged into that, but check it out. there may be the unraveling of the European Union happening as we speak. I need to kind of get updated. I've been out of the loop for a few days, and chat with. Sorry, let me let the lagging go down. Um, I have another chat going on with Alex Ioannidis that I'm trying to schedule, trying to hammer him down about his comments about John McCain and his involvement in a certain organization that's seen better days. So tune in. Thanks for tuning in today, and leave your comments below and like and share this video and my channel. Have a great Saturday night, and